Everybody. Welcome to the Village of North Hudson Plan Commission meeting, Wednesday, August 23rd. Take the roll call, please.
Chair Mike Meiser,
Here.
Joshua Bachman,
Here.
Rob Howard,
Here.
Tom Mitchell, Jean Schneider, Mary Wecken.
Here.
Kim White.
So we have 4 of our 7 members present, so we have a quorum. So we will go on with our meeting. Next item is the approval of the meeting minutes from July 19th.
I'll move to approve. as
We have a
written.
motion to approve. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. Any corrections, additions? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the meeting minutes of July 19th, 2017, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, we have approved the meeting minutes. Okay, our next item is a public hearing. A conditional use permit application of Stephen J. McFarland Storage Associates to construct 152 additional self-storage units at 247 Monroe Street North, PIN 16120225000. Discussion and possible recommendation. Before we continue, up until the Wisconsin Supreme Court decision of some years ago, almost anything commercially that somebody would want to do in North Hudson required a conditional use permit. Again, because of the Supreme Court rules, we changed our village ordinances, and in various zoning districts, there are now permitted applications. And a permitted application, you do not need to get a conditional use permit. If you're in a particular zone and you meet the requirements of a permitted use, you talk to the clerk and you're good to go. You do not have to see this body. Under the industrial zone, which is where this particular thing is located, under permitted uses are as following. There's 10 things listed. I'll just read the first one. Storage facilities, partitioned or unpartitioned, for rental to wholesale or retail customers. You read through that and you think, maybe this doesn't need a conditional use permit. However, our attorney is not here today and our normal village administrator is not. I believe they've kicked this around a little bit, so we will continue to go through the public hearing so we can hear from the public and to go through what possible conditions there is. It may turn out that when this is all said and done, this may be a permitted use that does not require a permit.
Require approval.
Approval of a conditional use permit. Yes, thank you.
A building permit.
Yeah, all that. That's
Go
just
through
the,
that process.
and, well, yeah, let me just read that then. Under the definitions in the village ordinance, what is a conditional use? A conditional use means a use of land, water, or building which is allowable only after the issuance of a special use permit by the village under conditions set forth in this chapter, chapter 98. And how that goes is the applicant comes to the plan commission. If we recommend approval, it goes to the village board. They have the final say whether they approve it or not. So that's what a conditional use is. So we did put out a notice and sent letters to all the people within 100 feet of the thing, of the facility, to have a public hearing, and so we will have a public hearing. Before we do that, though, I would like the applicant to go up to the podium and just state what the plan is. Hopefully it'll answer a lot of questions.
So the current plan is to build 152 self-storage units that would be contiguous with the existing 176 self-storage units on the property. As residents of the area have probably noticed, we've been doing a lot of work on the property. All of that work has been in regards to remediation. So The property, as everybody probably knows, dates back quite a ways to the 1880s when the rail shops were originally built. As we were going through due diligence in an effort to purchase the property, we found that it had never been environmentally assessed. So through that due diligence, we were put on a course to environmentally remediate all of the property. So it's about 17 acres of land. The WDNR has been involved from day one in the remediation. They were the ones that actually came up with and approved the plan. In addition to that, Cedar Corp Environmental Company has been involved. They've been the project managers. In addition to that, Zappa Brothers have been involved. They've been the primary contractor to do a lot of the work. So all of the work that has been done to date has been all about remediation and cleaning up the site. We're probably, I don't know, Gary, what, 95% of the way done with remediation? Part of the remediation plan was to cap the area that we're looking at, which is the mini storage units that we're talking about. So there's several different ways that you can remediate. One of them is to actually excavate a certain amount of earth and then cap it with a hard cap. So in looking at that alternative, to us, it made sense if we're going to put a hard cap down, it would make sense to also expand the mini storage units. So that's what we're doing. That's where the 152 units come in. It's basically the number of units that fits into that area that we're going to cap with asphalt and concrete.
Okay. Anyone else on the project have something to say? If not, I'd ask Kevin to just give an engineering.
All right, so Kevin Williams, village engineer for North Hudson. So I went through and did our typical review comments on the site plan that was submitted. I believe everybody's got a copy of those of what I've come up with. Just some background information on, the set yard or the setbacks, what those requirements are for the front, side, rear, and then the lot width. Which, the plan that they have in front of us does meet all of those requirements. And then from there, I guess I'll just jump right into the comments that I have. So we would like to see a grading and drainage plan for myself to review and approve. It's, none of like the spot elevations or contours have been provided. So we would ask that that be sent off to us for review and approval. One of the requirements within the industrial zoning district, there is a maximum % of impervious area. So that would include the buildings and the driveways for that particular lot, which is set at 75%. So we would like to see those computations just to ensure that that requirement is being met. So the remainder, 25%, would have to be what you consider as green space or open space. Stormwater management for the site. There is a proposed pond that's going to be constructed on the southwest corner of the piece. And that is for meeting, the runoff quantities, and then the water quality portion of it, the TSS removal. Just a note for that for the Plan Commission members. Then on the west side, where we do have obviously adjoining residential homes, we ask that, the vegetated buffer screen would continue to be in place, just to kind of screen the new improvements that are being proposed. One of the other things is the site lighting. We'd ask that that would be of the same style and type as the existing buildings that are to the south. And then obviously, any applicable local and state permits, those would need to be in place prior to construction. And then the last thing, just to try to blend, the new buildings into the landscape, we ask that those be of an earth tone color, just like what you see on the south side. So,
Any questions from the commission for the engineer?
No, but, except for the ponds. There's 2 proposed ponds, one on kind of each side of the property. Looks like the one is on the east side of 239 and 247. It spans both. I think actually both ponds do on the east and west side. Be on the north end of where the current storage units are, but way over on the east side of the lot line, right?
On each side, Mary, of the existing building.
Okay.
The 25% that's not, impervious,
Yeah,
does the pond play into that equation?
yes, it would.
Okay.
Yep, that would be considered, obviously as a non-impervious
Yes.
area, so hard space.
By definition.
Yep.
Okay.
So, yeah, that would be included in
Okay.
the 25%.
Okay. If there's no,
Is-
yeah, go ahead.
Is there storm sewer?
Yes, there is. There's the original pipe that was installed, basically when the whole development went in. They would actually be tying into that. There is a infall, an apron end wall that's being proposed that would tie into the existing storm sewer, yes. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
If there are no other comments, I guess I would entertain a motion to open up the meeting to a public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are now in public hearing as of 7:19. Thank you. This is the time for the public can come up and ask questions, and we'll try and get, we have a small enough group that we should be able to get a lot of information. I do have one written submitted comments, and I'm going to take the time to read it since the folks aren't here to read it themselves. Jeff and Doreen Larson, 419 and 415 Galahad Road North. Thank you for your letter and notifying us the application of conditional use by Stephen McFarland Storage Associates. We have noticed the construction ongoing all summer, and Jeff has inquired at Village Hall about the project where they had mentioned no permit was in effect at that time. We'll be traveling during the Plan Commission meeting, so appreciate the consideration by submitting written comments. Because our residential properties are within 100 feet of a commercial project, we do have three main concerns, which I will outline. Number one, easement as visual and sound buffer. Galahad Road is very active with biking, walking, and general public visiting the public beaches. I feel it is a beautiful road and appreciate it for the tree line on the east side of the road, which I imagine would be the west side of the property. Because the commercial properties have been in existence for many years and in various degrees of proper maintenance, the tree line that bridges the residential and commercial have been a priority for us. We hope that the easement can continue to be wooded, providing beautification, sound buffer for environmental reasons, as well as provide privacy. Number two, water issues and storm sewer. Upon moving to our home in 2000, having owned a lot 4 years prior, we quickly learned that heavy rains in the village affect our property on the river. Except for what the storm sewers can intake, the storm sewer overflow in the areas where there are no storm sewers, train car property, rush downhill across our lots and into the river. We hope the village has taken into consideration and conducted the due diligence for the large amount of paving and additional roof line that this permit will provide. Our properties sit adjacent to the paving, and we anticipate there will be increased water flow. This property has a non-paved wooded area that was approximately 70 feet deep. It gave ample space for the water to collect in the buffer, or at least slow the flow. Because it was wooded and contained high grass, it filters the flow. We are not engineers, but the grade of the river is steep from the permit area to the river, and most of the grade runs over our properties. And number three, privacy and access hours. Because these are storage units, we assume individuals will have access 24/7. Will the driveways to the storage areas near our home be on the west side? Will we be listening to loud music, movers, vehicles long into the night? Will the property owner have bright lights installed that will shine into our homes? These are some of the questions we have. We hope this owner will be great to work with, and we can build a relationship sharing concerns with each other. But mostly we hope the owner can understand that only a 100-foot bridge a commercial development from a residential area, and hope that the owner will have consideration for his neighbors with regard to privacy, safety, sound, and access. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. The permit is for a section of a large commercial property in the village residing within 100 feet of property tax-paying family residents. We hope we can find mutually agreed terms for becoming the best neighbors. And that was from Jeff and Doreen Larson. Kevin, do you want to comment on those? Because they're mostly in engineering, environmental issues.
So basically, the sound and visual, you know, that's, I guess, one of our comments that we would want to continue to have that vegetated buffer zone in between, you know, his development and where the residential, which, from what I can tell, they are definitely planning on, you know, keeping that in place, based on the clearing and grubbing limits that have been shown on the plans. The second one, the water issues in the storm sewer, so, you know, before there wasn't any stormwater ponds constructed in this particular site with what they're proposing here. You know, there will be one that is gonna be in place for the additional runoff and hard surfaces that will be construction. So it's actually gonna make it better for in that area from what it was before.
Okay.
The access hours and privacy, I guess I'd have to
Right.
probably defer that
Okay.
to the owners, so.
One of you want to comment on the rest of those comments, then we'll do the same for the other folks that have questions.
So it is self-storage, so it will be 24/7 access as it is today. But in talking to the North Hudson Police Department, we've also had several conversations about what I would call unwanted traffic through that. So there is no gates, there is no fencing. We have a lot of traffic that actually runs through there that is not customer-based, but are people that shouldn't be in that area. So we are also planning to fence not only the new construction, but also the existing construction, and put a gate to the self-storage area, which would only allow people with an access code into it. So customers only. We believe that this is going to cut down on the traffic through that area quite a bit. We're also going to install a new camera system. We're going to put in about 20 high-definition cameras, not only in the self-storage area, but all the way up into the warehouse buildings as well. And we're working with the chief of police to give them access to that camera system. So we'll not only have eyes on that, and we'll not only be recording, but the police department will have access to those cameras as well.
And if you would, we do have a letter from our building inspector, and I'm sure you've seen it, Brian Wirt, August 17th of this year. After reviewing the conditional use permit application, I recommend the following conditions. The driveway is to be at least 20 feet in width and paved. Grading, drainage, and erosion control plan be submitted for review and approval by the village engineer. Ingress and egress via Wisconsin Street North. Will that be Wisconsin Street ingress?
That's correct. There will not be any access to the property from Galahad.
Okay.
The Galahad side of our property will remain, from Galahad's perspective, the property will remain the
Yes.
way that it has been for years.
ID numbers for each unit to be no more than 6 inches in height. Screening hedge of evergreens to be planted and maintained along Galahad Road, not more than 6 foot on center. Sounds like the vegetation screening?
That would be new, though. That's,
I'm sorry, I missed that.
I'm assuming that is something that is new.
that's a recommendation.
This is a recommendation from the building inspector. That's all. I just
Okay.
wondering if you had thought of that yet, or if that's coming up later.
Well, actually, tonight was the first time that I'd heard from a resident that didn't think that the existing foliage was adequate. So we'll have to take a look at
It
that.
was good, but there's been a lot removed, obviously. I mean, you've been, I don't know, what was taken out, all those cottonwoods and everything were torn out. So, and to be honest with you, there are, in front of I'm next door to Jimmy Green. So there isn't,
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
Let's just keep that thought, and then when you go up there, we'll get them all answered. I got 3 more points here from the building inspector. Building may be situated on property no closer than 50 feet to Wisconsin Street or 40 feet to Galahad unless a variance is granted. 50 feet, 40 feet, is
Yep.
that? Okay, good.
Yep.
Fully detailed grading, drainage, dimension, site plan per approval or as revised by village engineer, okay?
Yep.
And the last one, and my personal favorite, lighting shall be wall-mounted, downcast lights mounted on the walls between the doors.
Yep,
So
same
there's
as
not
they
a
are
lighting
today.
problem,
Yep.
because that's always been very big down in the
Yep.
shop areas.
Yep.
Okay, that was the comments from the building inspector. And thank you, and now someone from the public wants to come up, please go to the podium, introduce yourself, and ask your questions, and hopefully they can answer them.
yeah,
For the TV, so on the microphone.
oh, okay. Yeah, I'm Jim Bond. My wife and I, Sue and I, live at 411 Galahad, so right next to Jeff and Doreen, and then Scott is here. He's on the other side, he's on the north side, so. I'm all in favor of this. I'm just here to kind of get an idea of what it's going to look like, and obviously, there's been a lot of activity with the soil remediation that Gary's been handling, but my concern is, I guess, what it's going to look like as a finished product, I guess, and looking at it now, when we drive up the end of our driveway, there's nothing there now, so there's gonna be something there eventually, and what it's, I don't, as far as roof heights and things like that, I don't know. I store some things up at Hank Fogelberg's place up on exit 4, and some of these buildings have, 12-foot doors and they're high roofs, and so I guess as far as whether they're gonna be lower profile buildings, or, I guess that's a concern of mine, is what they're gonna look like, right? So that's one, and the screening, I guess, is probably the biggest issue I have, and I read Brian Wirt's recommendation, and that appealed to me, I guess, as far as evergreens. Right now, there aren't evergreens there, they're just deciduous trees, the leaves fall off, and they're mostly scrub trees. So, and right now, there's really nothing behind it. There were a lot of cottonwoods and things that were all taken out during this remediation. Our concern is what it's gonna look like when it's done. We've got commercial or industrial right next to some fairly expensive homes along the river, I guess, and we want to maintain that buffer, I guess. And so that, I'm all in favor of the mini storage. There's one there already, but my concern is establishing some buffers so that when we drive over a driveway or driving on the road, you're not looking at mini storage. So, the evergreens, to me, they're not there now, so that's, he specifically said evergreens because you want a year-round buffer.
Oh, yeah.
So that, and even some type of in my mind, I'm looking at the industrial park, and when I've noticed some of the construction there, they even berm, the land, and, any height you can get, obviously, that you can screen from the road is important. So that's our biggest concern, I guess. So the lighting sounds like it's not going to be high stadium lighting. It's just going to be attached to the buildings. But building heights, I guess, would be nice to know kind of how big these buildings are going to be, because mini storage can be lots of different things. So that and the some type of a evergreen screen versus just the trees that are there now, I guess, that lose their leaves. And like I said, right now, it's not a big deal because there's nothing to look at through the trees, and I don't know what the timeline is as far as, actually building these, so,
Okay.
yeah.
That's it.
Scott,
Thank you, and I'll have them come up and answer.
Okay.
If you've got any answers for his specific concerns.
So I don't have a specific answer on the screening yet. I mean, that's something that we'll have to take a look at. There's obviously not insignificant cost of planting trees along Galahad. So we'll have to take a look at that. One of the reasons that we actually positioned the buildings the way that we did was we thought it would be best for the neighborhood, for you homeowners, to have the back of those buildings face Galahad, as opposed to seeing through the foliage and looking at the old warehouse building. So the design was that way. The original design was actually to run the storage units east and west. And when I looked at that, I thought that would be a lot more intrusive into the neighborhood. So again, we designed it that way. So when you see it from the back, it is going to be earth tones. They are going to be low profile building. They're not going to be any taller than the existing mini storage units. So right now, the mini storage units are a mix of 5 by 5, 5 by 10, 10 by 10, 10 by 20. These are going to be 10 by 10, 10 by 20, and the same height as the existing buildings. So they are going to be low profile. They are going to be earth tones. As far as construction timing, if everything goes well with the conditional use permit and things move along, we would anticipate pouring the concrete and the asphalt over the next 30 days. And then as we go into October, November, constructing the buildings. Did I hit on everything?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I don't know if I need to stand up there again, but I had thought one other item, and I bring up the place up on next four, when I rented there, he actually, the gates close at 9 o'clock at night, and you can't get in there. He actually restricts your access there, and it's on a timer. I don't know, has anyone thought about that, I guess, or would there be any benefit to keeping people out from 10 o'clock at night till 6 in the morning like the other place does?
We haven't given that any thought, but I will say that, based on our conversations with the prior operator and the North Hudson Police, the majority of the traffic after dark is traffic that shouldn't be there. So by gating it and only allowing customers into the site, I don't believe that there's gonna be a lot of activity at night. After the sun goes down, there's not gonna be a lot of activity there. The interior of these, units are not lit. So the only lighting that anybody would have would be the what I would call relatively dim lighting on the outside of the building.
And headlights.
And headlights. It's not conducive to moving in or moving out. And again, the majority of the traffic today is traffic that shouldn't be there. And it's not just within the storage units, it's that entire stretch on the west side of two. I mean, you guys have lived there long enough, you've probably seen some stuff that's gone on there that we're not happy with, and the police department's not happy with, and the neighborhood's probably not happy with, and that's one of the things that we want to put a stop to.
Okay.
And on the building height, the zoning allows 45 feet height. I mean, some of the buildings are very tall. Obviously, you're nowhere near 45
No,
feet in height.
no, we're keeping, it's just low-profile self-storage. We're not trying to do anything crazy. In regards to the screening, though, just to show you that I'm serious when I'm not just blowing you off and saying we'll think about it. We had a conversation early on during remediation with our neighbors to the north, and they were very concerned about the screening that was going away, because when the DNR came in, quite honestly, we didn't have control over how the site was remediated. The DNR, which is Wisconsin's equivalent of the pollution control agency that they would have over in Minnesota, they ran the project and they determined how the remediation was done, and that is the reason that all of those trees came out. So the property was basically stripped of all of that foliage, and the neighbors to the north were very upset with that, and I made a commitment to them that we will put pine trees in on that north side. So we're gonna be planting those this fall. So I'm not just saying we'll think about it and not, so we'll definitely take a look at that.
Well, and that, I mean, Brian Work he recommended the same thing, I guess, so that, obviously it's not a requirement, but.
Yep,
Thank you.
yep.
Any other comments from the public? Any other? Any other? Not hearing any? I'll entertain a motion.
Close the public hearing.
For a second?
Second.
All in favor of closing the public hearing, signify by saying aye. Aye. We are out of public hearing at 7:35. Thank you. Comments from the commission members?
Well, I'll just mention one thing. I know the biggest concern will be the relationship of the back of your buildings and the effect on the residences across Galahad. That's really what we're here about today, and the neighbors as well. You know, you're building a very long building that's how long is it? 440 feet long? It's basically a fence. You've got a solid metal building. It's essentially it's a fence. It's a building with a blank wall. It's going to be uninterrupted color. So I think this screening the screening need is going to be paramount to make sure that that's visually broken up. I mean, even if you could break it into two little separate it at some point, just kind of give some daylight to it might be nice as well. But because it's a long building, so I don't know what the regulation is in terms of sightline protection of sightlines from residential property to industrial uses. So I'd have to look at that a little more detailed. But I know in some zoning districts and other communities there are regulations about sightlines to industrial activities from residential districts. I don't know that we have
Nothing
that
in
issue here.
zoning that I know of.
So, but this is a concern we always have when we are building more industrial buildings and they're right on a really nice residential area like this. So I would behoove you to take a good look at the screening opportunity you have and to be a good neighbor and do what you can to ensure that there are some nice patches. And I think you know, one thing is to have a continuous wall of green, which would be awesome, but I'm not sure you're gonna be able to achieve that. I mean, there's some existing plantings, but if you can intersperse some pretty dense collections, I mean, you know, groupings of evergreens that would help to mitigate the length of that wall, it would be really great. So I'd be encouraging you to do that. And whatever you're able to, and we can't require you to put so many trees in or do what, you know, you can't do that, but I think we just want to make sure that you do the right thing. And I'm not sure if we need anybody to kind of review that. I mean, that doesn't exist in our parameters, so, but that would be nice to,
Well, again, on a.
really, because you're, you know, it's not any different than what exists, you know, to the south. It's kind of the same building type and same length. I'm not sure if that is the same length. I don't know how long that building is, that is right along Galahad. Is it longer or shorter? I don't know.
Probably the same length, but there's a
About
break.
the same, but there's a break,
Right.
yeah.
The other issue with the buildings to the south is they're actually doors that face Galahad.
Oh, yeah,
Here.
right,
And again, as,
Yeah.
right.
I think a full-on building is probably better because we don't.
in the conditional use
Well, you-
process,
Yeah, all right, right.
in the conditional use process, that if this board were to, or commission were to vote to recommend approval of it, we always attach conditions. Now, the village board has the final say, but this is where we put in things like that.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly how to word that, but, I mean, that's,
Or even if they think about it, so.
yeah, how would we describe the idea of these planting, you know, positioning planting in such a way to help interrupt the sight line of the new building?
Yeah, I mean,
Screening.
I would like the opportunity to go back and look at it, because when Gary and I were actually out there looking at it and determining how far we were gonna go, and we made absolutely sure that we left that foliage there
Yeah,
along
yeah,
Galahad, and I thought it was a pretty good screen.
yeah,
So as far
yeah.
as breaking it up the way you're talking about, I'm pretty sure it already does that.
Sure.
What I'm hearing is there are spots
Mhm.
that they would like filled in.
Well, I'm just going based on Brian Wert's recommendation. I mean, does that carry any weight, or why did he even recommend it, I guess, or what?
He's a building inspector, so
Yeah.
screening isn't part of the building, but it's, you know, he's gone through this enough, that, he's saying the same thing we all are.
Yeah, his recommendation is screening hedge of evergreens.
Yes,
Yeah.
to me, evergreens means something. It's a year-round screen, not a 6-month screen, I guess. And I don't think there's any evergreens back there, are there?
Well, I think what happened was Brian Wert's recommendation came from the original conditional use permit for the original buildings. And the reason that it was in there was because those buildings do have doors that face Galahad. And if you actually look at that screen there, those are evergreens.
Okay, I thought that was from August 17th or something.
Right, but what he did was he basically took everything from the original conditional use permit and he plopped it into this.
That's kind of lazy.
Again, you stated you'd like an opportunity to look at it again. This is not the final step, that's what I was trying to say before. So you have time to look at it
That's all gonna be fenced?
before,
It is fenced already, I mean, there's actually a fence that runs through that, except for the breaks where there
I
are.
just thought if you were gonna put up a new chain link fence, you could put that screening on the fence.
The issue the reason that we opted not to put in a chain link fence there is because you basically have to take down that existing screen, and a lot of that, I know it's scrub trees, and I know it's not perfect, but it's established.
Oh,
No,
we're very glad you left that,
It's a good-
because that was,
It's a good
that's a great,
screen,
that was a good.
and I have no
Right.
problem adding to it.
Mhm. Okay, no, I agree. Before anyone yanks all that stuff out, I think that's.
Yeah, we don't wanna do that.
No. And little pine trees grow fast too,
Yep.
I mean, we're
Yep.
not,
Yep.
expect you to spade a bunch of stuff in, just put some little stuff in, and they'll grow
Yep.
up in a few
Yep.
years.
Get more?
you know.
okay. I don't have any more.
I like that you're putting a fence around it. Before you owned it, I rented. Before I moved, and it was before I moved to North Hudson. There were a few times that I went afterwards when I was moving that I had to go grab something late at night. So I do like the fence idea, and it's access only to the police department and the actual people who are renting units. So that's very nice.
Thank you.
I like the camera idea, by the way, too.
Yeah,
I forgot
that's
to say
also
that.
very
That's
nice.
wonderful.
I'm really excited about the cameras.
So describe to me, when you're talking about fencing, I see on the end where on the north end of the new piece where the pond exists, is the idea that that gets fenced around on the inboard side, on your side of the pond? Or what do you?
The fence on the north end will run from the screen, basically, into building 2.
On the north end?
On the north side of that lot. On the south end, it'll run from the screen across the current driveway with the gate there, and then it'll run up the east side of the property. You know what building 2
Building
is?
2 is the middle one.
Yeah,
Building 2 is the largest railroad building on that end of the property. Yep.
This one? Or the U-shaped one?
Yeah, where's that picture?
Yours,
Or maybe it's not even
actually.
on here.
This is building 2 and this is
You,
3.
can you,
Yeah.
can you draw a line on this, can you draw where that,
So the fence will be, make sure this drawing doesn't go far enough.
okay, yeah, that's what I was
What
wondering.
the photo?
It's up here somewhere.
Yeah, so the fence will be along Wisconsin Street.
I see.
You're talking about the fence going around
So just,
239 Monroe and 247 Monroe.
Yep.
So 2 lots, the lot to the south,
Through the property.
or I'm sorry, the south,
South.
all the way around
Around
to Wisconsin.
to go up to the existing unit and then connect into the barrier and then go.
Come out and run like this here.
where did you just draw it here? Oh, right here?
Yep. So Wisconsin Street.
Yeah,
up the east
yeah, so
side.
you're really closing off that, not doing anything in here. I mean, that's just the screen, the vegetation screen and the pavement and the buildings. There's no fencing going on here.
Not inside here, no.
Yeah,
No.
okay.
But
So it's only for
This
vehicular.
entire
it's-
area will be fenced
It's
off.
restricting vehicular access.
Yep.
Okay.
Right down
Thank you.
here.
Okay. Barry?
Well, I think I need to see where the
Oh, okay.
fence is on, I've got the whole south part, because this is 239, this is 247. So the fence is all around here. How about up in
Fence will
this
come up
area?
come up the property line to here, and then it'll come into building 2 here.
Okay.
And then on this side, it'll come out of the screen
I
here.
start my boat
run
on the
into
block.
the
And
building
there's a
line.
gate, you type in a 4-digit code, the gate slides over.
So there's still access to get to this property?
Yeah, his access is actually off of our property. There's
Okay.
actually a driveway.
Yeah,
right
little
here.
driveway there,
Yep.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
So people will access it from Wisconsin. They'll access through a card key
Wisconsin
gate,
way.
through a gate there.
There will be access up here, but it'll be employees only.
Oh, so this is the only,
This is the only way
public
in.
access
Yep.
in is right here.
Great.
Yep.
Right.
Any other questions from the commission?
No.
Okay. Does anyone in the commission have a recommendation? Hint, Melissa typed one up, a real good starting point.
It would be in our packet.
I do have a problem with the suggested recommendation number 11.
Whose
How that's
recommendation?
worded. The one Melissa did,
Oh,
which is
okay.
very similar to
Oh, no, yeah, that's
Brian's.
just you don't have to include it if you don't want to, if you make the motion.
Well, yeah, but I don't, since we're talking about 247 Monroe, 247 Monroe is a lot further back than 50 feet from Wisconsin. 239 abuts Wisconsin.
And again, that was taken, like I said, I really believe that all of his stuff came right from the original conditional use,
Yeah,
which had those original buildings 50 feet from Wisconsin. We're so far away from Wisconsin Street.
that's why I thought that, yeah, exactly, that came
That's
from
why it
that,
says not
so-
closer than 50 feet, so that's not a problem.
Not a problem.
If you want to exclude it, you can, if you'd like to propose a motion.
I think I made enough motions today. I
Yes,
think I'll
you
let
have,
somebody
haven't you?
else do it.
And unlike the village board, I usually defer to the members to make motions. Try to spread
Well, I
it
can,
around.
go ahead and make a motion.
Sure, go ahead.
I would move approval of the application for Storage Associates at 239 and 247 Monroe Street North. Based on the plans we were seeing, I guess with the condition that, I guess it's on here, okay. The conditions as indicated by Melissa's note.
Okay.
Number, I can read them, or we can just put them in as verbatim. Would you like me to?
Yeah, go ahead and read
Read
them.
them, okay. All applicable local and state permits shall be obtained prior to commencing construction. Driveways shall be at least 20 feet in width and paved. Provide a grading, drainage, and erosion control plan to the village engineer for review and approval. Property is to be kept clean with no outside storage. Total area of buildings and driveways shall not collectively cover more than 75% of the lot. Please provide computations to the village engineer for review and approval. Ingress and egress via Wisconsin Street North. Screening hedge of evergreens be planted and maintained along Galahad Road, not more than 6 foot on center. Site lighting to be wall-mounted downcast lights. Lights to be mounted on the walls between the doors, to be of the same style and type as the existing buildings. Exterior appearance of the building shall be of an earth tone color. Identification numbers for each unit to be no more than 6 feet in height.
I think it's supposed to
6
be inches.
6 inches in, 6 feet, those would be big, right? 6 inches in height.
Oh, yeah, very good.
Must meet setback requirements. Building may be situated on property not closer than 50 feet to Wisconsin Street or 40 to Galahad, unless a variance is required or granted. Maintain 20-foot width for access and sufficient turning radius for fire department
Very good.
access.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Sounds very comprehensive. I like it. No other discussion? All in favor of approval of the recommendation of the conditional use permit as read by Rob, signify by saying aye. Aye. All
Aye.
opposed? That passes. Thank you. Again, this will go to the village board. There is a gray area of whether this should have been a permitted use and not even need a conditional use permit. We'll let the attorney and the village take care of that. But at least this way, the public got to give their concerns and talk to you, and that's a good thing. Item number 5, routine business. Any? Number 6, I'll call for adjournment.
Okay. So, adjourned.
Second?
Second.
All in favor of adjournment, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 7:49. Thank you all very much.